Hey everybody, it's Ben from My Sports Stop, here as always with Richie Donnell. Today we are going to be talking about our top 10 wide receivers of the 2017 NFL Draft. It's a pretty loaded class.
Yeah, definitely position heavy. As many as, 4 or 5 first-round guys.
Yeah, we could be talking about that much and even more on the second day.
Yeah.
So let's get in it. Number 10, you have Carlos Henderson from Louisiana Tech. Small school guy.
Yeah, so when you think of small school guys, one of the guys that got overlooked more recently, you talk about Antonio Brown, when he was coming out of Central Michigan, ended up being a 6th-round pick. Henderson's very comparable to Antonio Brown with the small stature, but very, very explosive in big plays, and that's what makes him very attractable. And he comes from a spread system in college, which is now what we're seeing from a lot of NFL teams. It gives him the opportunity to catch and run and just kind of get those yards after catch and make big plays.
Yeah, he is a true speedster. Kind of reminds me of a guy who came out big this year for the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill.
Yes.
He could be this year's Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Number 9, guy from LSU who's had a lot of receivers come out recently. Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Malachi Dupree.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the same level as those two guys. He definitely has the potential to be. He's a big wide receiver. But when I looked at him, I kind of saw a little bit more of the old school LSU receivers. When we saw a guy like a Dwayne Bowe, who was also an LSU guy.
Brandon LaFell.
And Brandon LaFell, both bigger guys who kind of made an impact, but not necessarily that next level stellar guy.
Okay.
Dupree's kind of in that same mold where he could be a really good number 2 receiver, kind of like a Mohamed Sanu type who had a big day in the Super Bowl, something like that where he could flourish.
Okay, now at number 8, another small school guy who made big waves at the Senior Bowl, Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, he's incredible. Watching his highlights is an injustice to watching him live and how good this kid truly is. When I watched him, I really wanted to find another comparison because it almost seems too fantasy and too true-like. But the only person I can think of when watching him, somebody that you're familiar with, Jordy Nelson.
Yeah.
I mean, he's big, he's fast, he's strong, and he just scores touchdowns. And obviously that's what you want out of that position. And coming from a high-octane offense at Eastern Washington, he's even played on the big stage going up against some of the FBS teams and even beating some of those teams and kind of showing what he's really good at, and that's getting deep.
All right, okay, number 7, a bit of a running back, wide receiver, dual threat, Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, Curtis Samuel to me is the next Tyreek Hill, where he can line up in the backfield, get some runs and break some big ones, or even catch it out of the slot. This guy is a true meaning of offensive weapon. He can really do it all, and just his versatility is what's going to be the key to his success. It's going to help him get on the field. It's going to help him in favor of coaches. And even though he's a smaller guy, he's really quick. And don't be surprised if he's one of the fastest guys at the combine, too.
Okay. All right. Now number 6, a guy from Virginia Tech, offense that threw the ball deep a lot, Isaiah Ford.
Yeah, Virginia Tech bringing in Justin Fuente really changed their offensive scheme around, and this guy was the biggest benefactor of that. Kind of broke out in a huge way and becoming a national name. He was kind of their only guy in the past, and he's had big years, but Virginia Tech just didn't have that buzz because they weren't winning at the level that they won this year. Isaiah Ford reminds me of a guy like a Roddy White, who's just super consistent. He catches the ball, he can run, he can kind of do it all, but isn't necessarily elite at anything, but can have a really long tenure in the NFL and even be a number 1 wide receiver for a team that might, like a New England Patriots, who doesn't necessarily push the ball down the field a whole lot, but they need that big outside guy who can make plays.
Yeah, interesting. Now number 5, a Heisman Trophy candidate, D.D. Westbrook.
Yeah, D.D. Westbrook was kind of like this one-year wonder guy. Not a lot of people knew who he was. I, as an Oklahoma fan, didn't even really know who he was until this year either. But this year he just kind of broke out. He showed elite speed, his ability to get down the field, score touchdowns. Reminds me of another Oklahoma receiver, Kenny Stills, that a lot of people saw in New Orleans and now in Miami. If D.D. Westbrook gets into a spread system, he's going to be a dangerous weapon because he can just flat out fly.
A vertical threat.
Yes.
Now number 4, John Ross from Washington.
Yeah, this guy, watching him is like watching Steve Smith. It's incredible to watch, and it's fun. The one play that will always stick out in my mind was Jake Browning throwing the ball away. He just reached up with one hand, grabbed it, and took off for a touchdown. He's got elite speed, elite athleticism. He's that next little guy that's just going to have big-time play. He has the potential to be a first-round pick, and wouldn't be surprised if he's gone before the end of the first.
Yeah, and I think anybody that drafts him will be very happy with their selection.
Absolutely.
Number 3, maybe one of the greatest FBS receivers of all time, Corey Davis.
Yeah, Corey Davis, he's going to get a lot of flack because of who he played against. Maybe not necessarily going up against the best teams, but it didn't matter who was on their schedule. He was playing well, and he got it done. From a production standpoint, like you said, he's arguably one of the best that the college game may have ever seen.
Yeah.
And in that offense, he was a great fit. But what's going to help him is the big body, being able to go up and get a catch, but also being able to maybe catch a short route and turn it into a huge play. Not a lot of big receivers are able to do that. Something kind of like a Julio Jones, but like compared to another guy from a small school like a Randy Moss.
All right.
Similar size, similar speed. I think that could be he could be the next small school guy that really just busts out in a big way.
Sounds good. Now, number 2, this guy has my favorite name in the entire draft, Juju Smith-Schuster out of USC.
Yeah, being able to watch Juju for the last 3 years, we don't necessarily get a lot of USC games on TV, but being able to watch him against Wisconsin in the bowl game last year, this kid's the real deal. He's got all the size, he's got the speed, and even though he's really the only threat that they had, he was still able to make huge plays and put up big production numbers, which just shows you the ability that this guy has. He's going to win every one-on-one battle, so you got to double team him, and even then, he's winning some of those battles, and all he does is score touchdowns. And like I said, I mean, that's one of the things that you want your receivers to do. When I look at him, I look at somebody like Brandon Marshall, who could end up possibly being a borderline NFL Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah.
Juju Smith-Schuster kind of fits that same mold, with the same size and catch radius.
Brandon Marshall on the cusp of 1,000 receptions, too.
Yes.
Now, number 1, no surprise here, has the perfect combination of size and speed. It's Mike Williams from Clemson.
I think what shocks people the most is the way that he came back from that injury.
Yes.
I mean, he had a neck injury last year, which caused him to miss virtually the entire season, and there was a thought that maybe he could never play football again. But just his ability to come back as strong as he did, he's incredible. He's a 5-tool prospect, so to speak, using a baseball term. But I mean, the kid he has it all. He's going to be possibly, I would put him in the top 10 range, maybe a top 5 if somebody says, hey, we either got to go up and get him, and because of that, where somebody might trade up to get him, he reminds me a lot of Julio Jones.
Yeah.
When Julio Jones came out of school, just that size and that speed, this guy's going to be a force to reckon with here in the next couple of years.
I agree 100%. Now, let's take a look at my top 10 receivers. It's a little bit different here and there. I have Smith-Schuster down at number 6. One guy you didn't have on your list, but we've been talking about a lot, is Zay Jones out of East Carolina. Did a lot for himself in the Senior Bowl. He just got himself recognized. He's got the size, he's got the hands, he's got the concentration.
Well, what was he? He had like 3 touchdown catches in the Senior Bowl, but only 1 counted or something like that because they ruled him out of bounds with no replay, and the other one was a penalty.
I mean, overall, even in the practices, he was just one of the best receivers on the field at all times. Number 8, I have Ardarius Stewart out of Alabama. I think this guy, he's got a really good combination of size and speed. And I mean, Alabama was just making plays, it seemed like, every minute. And he was definitely part of a lot of them. And number 9, Artavis Scott out of Clemson. Not a lot of people are talking about him because they're talking about Mike Williams, but Artavis is definitely a guy who I think could be a solid slot receiver and could be selected around the 3rd or 4th round in the draft. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and for more original videos, go to our website, mysportstop.com.